go on live. It is set to start at um, 1 p.m. because I've come to the conclusion that it's absolutely necessary. Um, Even though I said a long time ago that I would stop doing certain things basically because of my mental health. Yes, I do look a little, like a person that you wouldn't want to talk to if you ran across out in public. And I will ask you to excuse me because for the last week and a half, I've been suffering from the favor that somebody did of sharing their germs with me. Um, the the format is basic. I'm just going to talk to you. Right now, I'm just going through some things, working back and forth, making sure that things work the way I would like them to work, making sure there's sound everywhere. When I go here, I'm obviously going to have to go in the dark and hope for the best. Let me see here. No, I can't get. Maybe I can. I just don't know how. I'm trying to see if I can get bigger fonts. What is? Well, I guess I should have messed with that before I started, but that's okay. This is in the wrong book. I start at the beginning, and I want to start on that book. Yeah. All right. So I'll go back here. So apparently everything works, which is good. And I'll just keep running. No major announcements. No major work up until. Excuse me. Gonna check on something. Make sure everything's fine. Okay. Oh, nothing there. There's nothing that I saw. All right. Oh, that's going to happen a lot. You probably should have brought a beverage to deal with that. Can I go over here? Yes, I'm just adjusting. If you're looking at this, you're just looking at me playing with the system. I've been through many systems. That's why I got discouraged a while back and just decided not to. But this seems to be something I can work with. Just a little orientation. I started back in 2003 just out of frustration, writing articles, doing mental health videos on YouTube, and the purpose or the foundation was to share some of the philosophy that I have come to learn that I believe is helpful for individuals who are searching to live life free of pain and free of suffering. Um, in the year 2000 is when I'm going to say my transition from being just a regular worldly person to being a person who understands the the prominence of God. I've always believed, I guess. I've never dug into it deeply, but I've always been a person who had who knew the existence of God, and that one itself it describes most people that we hear, but we're left to certain devices of whether we can 100% without equivocation say that God truly exists. And for me, it was never whether he existed. It is just that I wanted to live a certain life. I guess most people want to live certain lives. And, we're given messages in this world. And we want to see about how those messages can be useful in obtaining employment and in finding the place that we believe we belong in life. And it, of course, it encompasses everything. The reason that I'm doing this is because I realized that there are a lot of people who are contributing to the messages that are out there, and the messages that they are contributing to, that they themselves are putting into what I call the public conversation, aren't very good messages. I've been observing a lot, of television and on radio, and as far as Christians, what Christian ministers and pastors are doing. And I was watching someone this morning, can't say Christian minister or pastor or university professor, but the individual was given a discourse on angels and demons and the enemy, Satan. And he commented that he came across a statistic about how many pastors don't use the Bible in their sermons. And I've noticed that. Not only have I noticed that, I've noticed that individuals are using a particular book, and it's a book that I would never recommend, or it's a form of a book that I would never recommend, which is known as the NIV. And I wrote an article explaining why, and I attached certain videos from YouTube. And it is an honor and a privilege to be a member of the kingdom of God, but it comes with responsibilities. It extends more than just an honor and a privilege. And I said, right now all I'm doing is messing around and everything seems to be working, but I'm going to go ahead and just ramble on, and at 1 o'clock I'll hit the message as I want to hit it. And it's not a complicated message. So just talking here, there's a lot in the world. And we have been sort of, treated unfairly, because there seems to be a certain amount of boredom that has developed in the Christian church in our time. And, maybe I'll say in the last 15 years, where ministers have just not, been in the mood to teach the Bible. And in a society that, let's take our modern world for example, that has so many liberties and so many freedoms, the members of that society probably don't go to a church and hear a pastor talking about how everything we've been doing all week long is wrong. But the reality is that that's exactly what is needed in our society. What is needed in our society is for those of us who believe in God and know Him to be true, is to live according to what it is He wants from us. None of us are perfect. I don't think that any one of us could say that we're perfect, or that we can strive to be perfect. But we're built for common sense, reason, a rational thought, and we can very easily see how living according to the Bible is going to contribute to our mental health, is going to contribute to our freedom from depression and freedom from anxiety. And one of the things is to study psychology. I managed in my life to get a bachelor's. I wanted more, but I'm not going to cry. At least I got a bachelor's in psychology. And you see the parameters and what contributes, and you become to understand people, as far as their personal experience, as far as their personal psychology is concerned. But you also see the value of God. And when I started writing articles, it was obvious to me that we are our own worst enemies. We have no one to blame but ourselves. Now, people do things to us. Yes, we experience, what's the word I want to use? We experience stress, whether it's through abuse, negligence is abuse, learning bad behaviors. When you see a lot of things that you ask yourself, well, why does that happen? The automatic answer is because of immature individuals who did not know how to properly raise their children. And the reason they didn't know how to properly raise their children, one is their culture taught them bad messages, bad ideas, bad philosophies, but the interaction, their own personal life experience also contributed there to being things that are undesirable if your goal is to be free of pain and suffering. And I would have to say that most people would love to have a life that's free of pain and suffering, and it's possible. I think that's one of the greatest messages of hope that there is that it is possible to have a life free of pain and suffering, and you can be a person who is in this crazy world as such as it is, but yet not having your personal psychology affected in a negative way, even though you're surrounded by the insanity. And you have to understand who you are. And in that understanding, you have to, well, you don't have to. I mean, this is not where somebody's going to put a gun to your head. But I'm going to tell you that that you will see the benefit of including God in your life, because if you're a person of anxiety, if you're a person of depression, if you're just a person of overwhelming sadness, it's due to the fact that people have been trying to get you to live a life absent of the knowledge that there is a God. And that means you're living, an unfulfilled life, because you're not living the kind of life that you should be living, the kind of life that you could live. You're living the modern industrial life, and you're trying to do everything that the people in the modern industrial world tell you is what should help and what should build a life that is beneficial for you. And ultimately what happens is, I've seen it. I've never been, well, I've had this and that job in a windowless office, but the majority of the work that I've done has been public contact. And I've talked to a lot of people, and I've heard people tell me a lot of things, and I can tell everybody at my age, after everything I've heard from members of the human race, is I tend to be cynical about what people tell me. And it's because people don't tell you the truth. Most people are afraid to have a real good look at themselves. That's one of their, oh, why? Okay, so that's a good thing. Apparently the screen goes out if I don't move stuff around. So that's good that I caught that. That's why I'm doing this, trying to catch as many glitches and errors that can possibly happen before I actually do this. And I know it'll take a time to build an audience. But what I was trying to tell you is that, we were built for a purpose. And if we're not following that purpose, we're not going to be fulfilled. It literally, it's like having a Porsche in the garage that you never drive. If you never try to examine your spirituality, your faith, you're going to find that there's part of you that you're never utilizing. Jesus Christ is automatic healing from anything. And I know that there's a lot of people who would disagree, or who just don't want to hear. The modern attitude is a quick negative attitude against God anytime anybody mentions God. There was this, it's ironic because this story parallels my life story. Well, not just a bit of it. But I was watching this documentary of what happens to people after they have been released from prison, having been found innocent of the crimes that they were charged with. And we all hear, on the news of individuals who through the assistance of organizations, were able to prove that they were innocent for the crimes that they were put into prison. And there was this one gentleman who said that while he was inside the prison system, he decided when he got out he wanted to be a doctor of psychology in order to help the people who have been through this kind of experience, because all of the individuals who were interviewed in this documentary who had been released and who were innocent um, were convinced that there were many more people in the prison system who are innocent. And I'm going to go ahead and say that I believe that that's true. And I'll even go ahead and say that. And I probably shouldn't laugh, but I'm going to say that they're there because people in the system were evil people, and they behaved themselves in a way to hide evidence and to, knowingly put innocent people into prison. But this individual who decided to study psychology, they were going through the documentary and interviewing this person and showing that person. First he mentions it, then he graduates, but he graduates with an associate's in psychology. You know, excuse me. That's going to happen whether I'm sick or not. And of course, I did study psychology, and I know you don't go from an associate's and to a bachelor's. You can go straight, beginning first semester freshman, last semester senior, bachelor's program complete. But the reason being that he graduated with an associate's first is because you've been out of society, your life was stopped. These people who were imprisoned unfairly, their life stopped. You and I, we were 18, 19 years old. We were making decisions. We were going to universities. We were registering, and we got the benefit of being involved and having that intellectual growth. But when you go into the prison system, your intellectual growth stops. You're no longer, run-of-the-mill individual. I'm going to cough again, excuse me. You're no longer run-of-the-mill individual. You're now an individual inside an institution. And just for your information, institutions are unhealthy. You go to a hospital to get well, but the reality is that the cement, the floors, the walls, the ceilings, the bed, the windows, just the how they're built. They're unhealthy because that's not what's natural for people to be in. Just compare your home, which has got your stuff, your pictures, your flowers, your if you have a couple of stuffed animals, your dogs, your cats, where friends come over. That's a totally different experience than being in a concrete building, which is cold. You have no control over the temperature. You're directly, majority of your life, you're directly, just next to the facilities, the restrooms and stuff. So it's rather toxic. So you take that person out of the prison system and put them into university situation, and it's going to take them a while to unravel, to peel off the layers that have been compounding year after year. And I'm talking about levels of stress, because we as an individual, as an organism, protect ourselves. And when you're I'm going to say when the person's in an institution, in a prison or in a hospital, they have a lot of levels of fear because they're not in control. The janitor, the nurse, the nursing assistant, the doctor, the pharmacist, the person who comes in and takes blood, the person who runs you down to the x-ray, they're all in control. You have no control over your life. And that's a stress point for people. So I can understand why this person was struggling after leaving prison and trying to become a doctor of psychology, earn a PhD in psychology. But the part that relates to my personal experiences, that I believe, and I don't think I'm anything great, but I believe that I'm a better counselor, even though I only have a bachelor's. But I believe I'm a better counselor because I have come to know God, and I can offer people the benefit of what God has taught me. I don't need a PhD in psychology to be able to help people, come to know Christ and deal with their depression and anxiety. And I also understand that these are serious issues. When I was helping what I call supervised um, suicides and mental health cases in the county hospital. As a mental health technician, I used to tell people, look, don't start conversations you can't finish. Don't ask these people questions, that's going to take them to areas that they don't want to deal with, because that's going to lead to fear, and fear is going to lead to many different fear responses, and some of those fear responses can be violence and aggression on their part towards you, and that needs to be understood. So I understand that the human psychological experience for some people can be more overwhelming than just a simple, video essay talking about how to be positive, optimistic, realistic, how just how to stop beating yourself up, how to focus on simple, healthy pleasures in life instead of, focusing on the negative. Focus what's on good in life, and make fun a part of your life. Modern depression, which I think is a very big problem, is basically due because people just don't know how to live. They see these things, these commercials, and you gotta have your iPad, and you gotta have your iPhone, and you gotta be texting, and you gotta be tweeting, and you gotta be Facebooking, and they're doing all of this stuff, but they're slowly dying. They're no longer enjoying, the melody in the song. They're no longer enjoying human to human interaction, joking around, or interacting with family. And they go through all these different activities, and they find themselves unfulfilled. And that's good, because I've come up to 1 o'clock, which is the starting point. I'm just going to go ahead and go through this. Everything seems to be working, so let's give it a shot. Greetings, my name is Jesse. I've done a lot of work on the internet under different names, but I decided that the only name that I will use from now on, whether I write or do a video essay, I'm just going to use Jesse. When I started writing on mental health issues, because that's the degree that I got. And then I started writing on politics because I was noticing certain things, and you know how journalists are, especially in the liberal news media, they tell their story, they don't tell the true story. So I started writing articles to sort of set certain records straight. And I'm not going to go, re-debate the need to go to Afghanistan and Iraq. Now this is a new project, because as I was writing my last articles, which I had personally said I was going to retire because it was just getting too physically exhausting to handle my personal life, and then handle what I call, my writing, and then what I call my mission, my personal mission. And my personal mission is to help people not hurt anymore. I believe that we have everything that we need to deal with the pain and suffering that we're going through. We can think. We can think. We know how to think, and by thinking, we can organize information. We can say, this is good, this is bad. I can use this information, and this I shouldn't be using. And then we can plan. We can set objectives, goals, and objectives. And the hardest part for anybody is to get to that point of acting, of doing. So we can think, organize, plan, and act. We have that capacity. We're built that way. The problem is that our culture has taught us to be sick people. Let me say that again. Our culture has taught us to be sick people, to be negative people. And I know you're probably, I'm going to say something, you're going to say, well, Christians shouldn't speak that way. But I'm going to say it as it is, because I believe sometimes things need to be said the way they're said in order to get the true meaning across. And there's too many of us walking around saying, everything sucks, nothing works, why bother? And that's the attitude that our culture has taught us. And we're making ourselves sick. As I was just going through this, and I didn't stop or finish, and I know what I'm doing. Okay, so I was on this idea, that we're given this message of everything that is supposed to be right, iPads and iPhones and texting and tweeting and Facebooking and all of that is taking us away from our natural essence. You know, if you're a person who's happy, who honestly believes that there's nothing wrong with your life, I don't think I have that much to say to you unless Jesus Christ is not in your life. But first, I'm going to go, and this is going to be a short, live session. I can get it down, and I know what I'm talking about. So less than 30 minutes. But if everything is good in your life, there's no problem. If Jesus Christ is in your life, it doesn't matter how good how good you think your life is. There is a problem. But just to focus on the mental health part of it, okay? My point is that we are making ourselves sick with our negativity. Elements of the media taught us that attitude. Our interactions with people as we were growing up input attitudes in us that are no good, and as we were encountering life, there was also failures that we interpreted in a bad way, which have contributed to that negative attitude that makes us sick. I know that it's a difficult world, but the reality is that we have a lot of potential. And the way that we hurt ourselves is by the way we think. And we really do need to walk away from that negative attitude and move towards a more positive attitude. Now, I'm not talking about, being blindly convinced that everything is beautiful. That's not what I'm talking about. I talk about realism, seeing life for what it is. But seeing life for what it isn't obsessing on what's wrong, what's missing. It's appreciating what is there and what you have. And you will find that if you decide that you've had it with the pain and suffering, you've had it with the depression, you've had it with the anxiety, you can start incorporating fun in your life. And by incorporating fun in your life with simple, healthy pleasures of life, you can change your mood and you can feel better. That's the basic mental health discourse right there. My way, my thesis, if you will. Now, how does that encompass God? See, I told you I could do this very easily. Use your thoughts to organize information, to set up a plan of action, and to act. Okay? If you honestly want to get something, then you have to go through a process of goals and objectives, of understanding your personal strengths and your personal weaknesses. Okay? And the part, see, when I came through these conclusions, it was working through everything that I have learned in psychology. I took my bachelor's in psychology very serious. I took abnormal psychology, I took advanced abnormal psychology, I took learning psychology, developmental psychology, adolescent psychology, what is the other one? Perception, I'm going to call it neuropsychology. The courses were different names, but so I took psychology courses in my bachelor's programs. Even electives, I took psychology courses. Okay, now to center the argument, let me see if this works. I'm going to change to my desktop, and I'm going to prep the part of the Bible. And if you're going to study the Bible, as far as I'm concerned, you got to study with Genesis. Okay, and the Bible that I will tell everybody, get yourself an authorized version, a 1611 King James version. Okay, they're not hard to find. It's very easy. If you want to understand the true meaning of why, and I guess I have to add a video, but what I'm doing here is, on this live session, is to work through the idea that the reason the world is so messed up is because we're messed up. We ask for a better world, but we're not attempting to be better people. And societies are composed of people. And as much as we don't want to have a good look at ourselves, we're the ones running red lights. We're the ones speeding. We're the ones driving through stop signs. We're the ones harassing our fellow drivers on the road. You can point fingers at everybody else, but the reality is that somehow, some way, we're doing something to help the amount of evil in the world grow. Instead of being agents of peace, being men and women of peace, encouraging peace, encouraging love, encouraging joy, we're agents of darkness, and we're encouraging evil. Okay? Well, it's ringing, but it's not ringing. So, this is Bible-based, and with the focus on how can we be better people so we can encourage others to be better people, and by doing so, creating a better society. Now, most people are familiar with Genesis, okay, but I'm going to go ahead and read, because I'm a person who happens to believe anybody working for God not reading from the Bible is not really working for God. So, Genesis 1, I don't know if this will highlight it on the video, but let's start here. Okay, Genesis 1, in the beginning God created the heaven, singular, and the earth. Okay, now I'm going to stop there. I'm going to stop. I'll read through and I'll stop where I think there's a significant point to be made. You notice the phrase, in the beginning. Okay, because there's people who think that there were certain types, there were different beginnings. And notice that says, in the beginning. Now, did the universe always exist, or did it have a beginning? Here it says, in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. Okay? So there was a beginning. I got my degree in the College of Science. I struggled in the College of Liberal Arts, and then I said, these wacko liberals are never going to let me graduate. So I went over to the College of Science. And the most ironic thing is that, well, the point I was going to make, that in science there is the Precambrian area, which they used to call the time when there was no organic life. Earth was basically a rock. And then after when the Cambrian explosion, and of course I could do research, and I should, but just basic summation, you had the Precambrian and the Cambrian explosion. And there's people who say, let me read here so you'll know where I'm getting to. In the beginning God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep. Okay? There's people who believe that something happened to the earth, and then God had to form it. I'm not going to argue with anybody, okay? This here, without form and void and darkness, and that idea that the earth had to be recreated, okay, sort of parallels the Precambrian and the Cambrian. A rock, and then all of a sudden an explosion of life. Okay? Just a small point, and I'll develop it later. I'll have papers here and remind myself of other science stuff, but it's not necessary. See, when I was thinking of, and I meditate, I don't no longer write on tablets, I just organize it in my mind. And I said, well, the importance of the Genesis in the conversation of being better people is that right off the bat, we're either going to say we believe what God is telling us, or we don't believe what God is telling us. Because personal health, spiritual health, health and faith, and mental health comes from the value of the information that we have. When you believe in God, then you have to believe in what God is telling you. And it should settle you to be able to respect the authority of God. So in this conversation, when we're reading through Genesis and any part of the Bible, as far as how we become better people, we can become better people when we understand there is a God and we're responsible for respecting His authority. And His authority is not a punishing authority. It's an authority that can help us deal with our anxiety and our depression, help answer the questions of life, help put order in our life, and help us have a life that we all want, which is not only free of stress, but it's also pleasant and enjoyable. Okay? So, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth was without form and void and darkness. And darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters. Okay? And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. And God saw the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. And God called the light day, and the darkness He called night. And the evening and the morning were the first day. Now there's a lot of pastors that sequence it. First the creation of light. And what is the significance if you're having a conversation with a person and they're talking to you, they're asking you, well, how can you believe that God spoke and the universe was created? Well, how can they believe that there was nothing and then there was an explosion and the universe was created? I mean, if you want to scale things in the irrational or rational, both of those things would get people to wonder. There was nothing. Now, science tells you that the elements that exist were compressed in a small area, and by being compressed in that small area, they created heat and pressure, and eventually the heat and the pressure was substantial to cause an explosion, and that explosion led to what we know to be the universe and the things inside the universe. Okay? But again, respecting the authority of God, you have to say, well, God said so. And if God said that He created the light, He created the light. And that is a point of personal mental health, not to mention spiritual health. To recognize that we need to stop being so free to think that we're everything, that we're it. And accept the reality that we have to be taught. And that's basically what God is doing. In the Bible, He's teaching us for our benefit, for our well-being. And it's not just for so one person can be okay in life. It's so all people can be okay. Imagine a world where everybody tried to be kind, polite, and respectful. We would have a better world, wouldn't we? Of course we would. And that is possible if we yield to the authority of God. And I'm not going to keep beating the horse, I think I made the point. Okay? And God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters." And God made the firmament and divided the waters which were under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Now, we have heard of the flood. And it is believed in the Christian community that the firmament spoken of here is that the earth was covered by clouds, thick, dense clouds, which prevented sunlight from going through. And that's why men were able to have lives of 900 years. Okay? Now, I know science, and this is science-based, but I'm not a person who looks at science to justify the Bible. Okay? I take it for what it says, and all it's telling me here is that God said, "Let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it divide the waters from the waters here and the waters up there. And God made the firmament and divided the waters where under the firmament from the waters which were above the firmament, and it was so. Okay? And God called the firmament heaven. And the evening and the morning were the second day. So we're going from light to the firmament between the waters in the heaven. Okay? And God said, let the waters under the heaven be gathered together unto one place, and let the dry land appear, and it was so. And God called the dry land earth, and the gathering together of the waters called he seas. And God said that it was good. Okay, and I'm just catching myself here. And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, herb yielding seeds, and a fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, and whose seed is in itself upon the earth. And it was so. And the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after its kind. And God saw that it was good. And the evening and the morning were the third day. So the gathering of the waters, okay, and the dry land appearing, and then plants starting to grow. Now I stopped there because I had mentioned Cambrian and Precambrian, and if you look into if you're a science person, you will notice that what they tell you in science classes as how the earth developed, as how the waters needed to be cooled and gathered into an ocean, and then from that ocean came plants, okay? I'm not going to mention the primordial goop, but okay. And then from plants, you go to animals. Here, which is I think interesting, is that way before science collected its ideas of how universe and planet and moons were made, here you have individuals chronologically explaining what science began to understand thousands of years in the future. Okay, so we were here, and the earth brought forth grass and herb yielding seed after its kind, and the tree yielding fruit whose seed was in itself after its kind, and God saw that it was good. And the evening, okay, so the third day. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let there be and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. It does not say for prophecy. And God said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs, and for seasons, and for days, and for years. Okay? The book of Revelations, it starts talking about the moon turning to blood. Okay? The signs, for signs. Okay? Agriculture, when to plant, when not to plant. Okay? That's what it's talking about. And Jesus Christ said, it is a wicked nation that looks for signs in the heavens. Okay? So, I'm just going to stop there. This is going to be a long project, thoroughly examined. Genesis 1:15, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And God made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, the sun, the lesser light to rule the night, the moon. He made the stars also, and God set them in the firmament of heaven to give light upon the earth. Okay? And to rule over day and over night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, and the evening and the morning were the fourth day. And God said, let the waters bring forth abundantly the moving creatures that have life, and fowl that may fly above the earth in the open firmament of heaven. And God created great whales, and every living creature that moveth, with the waters brought forth abundantly, and their kind, and every winged fowl after his kind, and God saw that it was good. And God blessed them, saying, be fruitful and multiply, and fill the waters in the seas, and let the fowl multiply in earth. And the evening and the morning were the fifth day. And God said, let the earth bring forth and beast of the earth after his kind, and it was so. And God made the beast of the earth after his kind, and the cattle after their kind, and everything that creepeth upon the earth after his kind. And God saw that it was good. And God said, let us make man in our image. Okay, and again, I said I'm going to stop. Just a little summation. If you study science, you're going to see that they tell you about the Precambrian, the Cambrian explosion of plants, and from plants to insects, insects to bigger animals, you know, and then you went from the oceans to the land, and from the land forward, okay? And here, I stopped and God said, let us make man in our image. Notice the plural, okay? Now, what is image? First off, deal with image, then I'll deal with the plural. You should be able to understand who the plural is, but image. God is a God of love. God is a God of kindness. God is a God of purity, of righteousness. God is good. And that's what we're supposed to be. That's how he made us. Does God have hands and legs and a head and eyes and ears? Well, God was a spirit. God is now Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ is in his celestial body, which is the body we're going to get. So to the answer to the question, does God have hands? Yes. God is Christ, Christ is God. Okay? And that's the pronoun "our" part of it. In our image. In the image of God, the Holy Spirit, and the Son. I'm going to cough again. And let them have, excuse me. So God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea. Now, notice the other, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, over the cattle, over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So you can take here that this is talking about a singular man. It's talking about the whole human race. When God made Adam, he was making a human race. Let them have dominion over the fish. Okay? So God created man in his own image. In the image of God he created him. Male and female created he them. Okay? And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply and replenish the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So planet Earth is for the benefit of humanity to sustain life. We get these people who don't chop down this tree, don't eat that animal. Okay, when you believe in God, you believe that the planet is made for our benefit. And God said, behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of all earth, and every tree in which is the fruit of the tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat. And every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the air, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat, and it was so. And I wanted to get through this, what I'm reading, because I want to get through it. And God said, everything that he had made, did I miss? No. And God said, everything that he had made, and God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. Okay? And I'm going to stop there. So, just today, as an introduction, okay, it's, I'm going to move my thing here so I can bring my camera up. Okay, so that's an introduction, which is how do you and I become better people so we can encourage our neighbors to be better people, and so we can help make better societies. The reality, and this is what I believe when you're doing Bible study. The person who is doing it, well, excuse me, this is what God has revealed to me about Bible study. The person who is doing it has the responsibility to start from the beginning and work towards the end. Has the responsibility of teaching Scripture from the beginning to the end. And as you're moving through the Bible from the beginning, you also have the responsibility of showing how that fits into a person's life. The book of Genesis, right off the bat, we're getting the benefit of understanding the authority of God, of believing what God tells us, and not having a complicated mind about how this scientific theory and that scientific theory tells me something different. I got a degree in the College of Science. I can understand most of what people say when they're trying to prove that God isn't real. I saw the movie God is Not Dead, and I was very disappointed with it because there is no scripture in it. I mean, there's one scripture line that they kept using throughout the movie, but the way you prove God is you teach the Bible, and you teach the King James Bible. Now, in the personal, you will find a loving, caring, interested God that is trying to guide us away from depression, trying to guide us away from anxiety, and trying to guide us towards peace, love, and joy, and to be good to one another, and to help us. So the application is that by believing what God says, we can believe that by doing what God tells us, we will have the life that God wants us to have, which is a life free of pain and filled with love, peace, and joy. And we do struggle. We face a lot of things, but we face them with dignity and grace, knowing that our God is a God that keeps his promises. And I'll close this there. And by stopping at the end of a chapter, I'll be able to keep this, in order. Thank you for listening, and I wish you well.